Okay, guys. So, yeah, some of you guys have done CMAs before. Some of you might not have. So that's okay. We just want to. I want to show you guys what I do with my CMAs, and that way you guys could get a good idea. Maybe I do it a little differently than yourself, and that's completely fine. I just want you guys to see what I do. So. I use two tools. I use the Garden State MLS and I use NAR RPR. So NAR-RPR is National Association of Realtors Realty Property Resource. It's a mouthful. We just call it RPR, but it is a very, very useful tool. And you can link it to different MLSs. So I am doing my training based off of the Garden State MLS. But if you're, primarily Hudson County, you could do the Hudson County MLS, Middlesex County. If you're in Florida, this is a national thing, so you can link it to your Florida MLS, no problem. When you go to profile, you just scroll down. There's a section here that has MLSs. You just choose your state and then choose the MLS, and it'll ask you for like your name. So here's all the MLSs that it works with. I don't think it's linked to Hudson County, but it is linked to Garden State and New Jersey MLS. So yeah, you guys can scroll in through here and just pick out what you need. I was just updating a couple things on mine, so let me just close everything out and then we can get started. So let's go back to the home. So I'm going to do it like this. We have a listing appointment tomorrow. Evelyn, was that confirmed?
Yeah.
All right, cool. We're going to take a look at a property at 612 Oakwood Ave in Roselle Park. Now, if you guys listen to my training on listing presentation, I go through a whole set of things that I do before I get into it. And part of it is going through the analysis tab of the Garden State MLS and taking a look at area statistics. So first thing I do is I'm going to Google the property, 612 Oakwood Ave. Oh, I have my number lock off. 612 Oakwood Ave. And then we're going to do Roselle Park. And so this will help me figure out a couple of things. One, sometimes the property may be listed and you don't know. And a quick Google search should be able to tell you some information. And then two, you want to see some of the street view and see what you're up against, what kind of property it is, what kind of neighborhood is it in, are there any observable obsolescence that you can see? So I'm going to open up a couple things. One is the street view. Next is the Zillow. As much as we don't necessarily like them, they have a lot of integrations. So it beats going in through every MLS and checking if it's listed through that MLS, right? So I'm just going to go on here. Everything else we're okay with. The last thing I open up is typically the assessment search, which I showed you guys how to access before. I usually just look up the address here, 612 Oakwood, and I'll show you guys why I do this. All right, so going back to the beginning, street view. So I kind of take a look at the home. First thing is don't just trust Google say so right off the rip. You better try to zoom in and see if you can see a street number on it. This one is a little difficult and we might not be able to see an actual, oh, there it is. Yeah, you can see right there, it says 612. It's a little hard to see, but I always try to verify through here because like I said, sometimes, yeah, this one's a tough one, but typically you just try to zoom in and see it, but I am pretty confident in that. So this home is looks like a colonial style, newer construction. When you have these garages down there, it could also be a split level just based off of how it looks, because on the ground level, you do have this garage door and a window, and then the window is below grade from this door, and then there's another level. So it could be a split level, it could be a colonial, sometimes it could be a bi-level. So there's a couple things, but I know for a fact it's not a ranch. It's not like these are Cape Cods or ranches. Like you can see that from the side, but this one might be either a colonial or a split or a bi. So that'll give me some information. I also look around the neighborhood. It looks like most of them were all built as Cape Cods. This one probably was originally a Cape Cod that was expanded. So I already know a couple things about the property, or it was demolished and rebuilt. I'm not 100% sure, but I start gathering information. Also, I'm looking at the street. I don't see double stripe lines, which is always a good thing because it means that it's not a super busy thoroughway. I don't see any big electric towers. There's a lot of things that you can gather from here. I also want to go back and look at the map overall, and I try to come in and just do a satellite view just to see what's around it. So I know that this is the parkway, which is good. So I know that right off the rip, I can advertise if you hit Fay 2 and come down here, you can turn right, and then you can hit the parkway north and south. So it's very easy for commuters. I can also zoom in a little bit and see that most of it is residential right around it. But there is a big apartment complex down here, Woodside Ave Apartments. However, it's not on the same street, and it's actually parallel and a couple blocks away. So again, these are the types of things that we start ascertaining when we start looking. There is a school right here, Aldine Elementary School. So that's close by. There's a park right here, courts. So there's a lot of information you can get. Now, it is also close to some industrial zone. Right over here, you have a section with industrial areas, but it's not on the same street. So it's giving you a good idea just from the overview. Now, the other thing is in our markets, we also look for train stations, right? It's a very important thing. Let me just put this on Do Not Disturb. There you go. We'll look for train stations because that's going to be one of the major factors. And I know Roosevelt Park has a train station, and we see it here. So a lot of times I just hit directions, and then I just put Roosevelt Park train station, and that'll tell me exactly how far it is. So it's less than a mile. It's 0.9 miles. It's a 19-minute walk. So that's phenomenal. You can say within a mile of the train station, right? The other thing is a lot of times the buyers are going to be New York commuters. So I usually just put in here New York Penn. So from that house to New York Penn, if I was to take transit, how would it look? So if you do that, it'll show you there's a bus route, the bus 58, and it'll get you there in an hour and 14. And then also you can walk and take the Raritan Valley train line, and it'll get you there in 59 minutes. So this just a quick way to kind of see what are the paths for commuters. So we looked at the area, we looked at the commute. We're going to look at Zillow and see what's going on. So look, this is a for sale by owner. The property is the one that we found. And this is how we got the listing appointment through calling for sale by owners. We have some information. Now, this, we're going to take it as a guide, but we're not going to solely rely on it just because sometimes the owner has the wrong information, not intentionally, but sometimes they just don't know. So 2,800 square feet, like, does that include the basement? Is that what's on the tax record? That's why I pull up the tax record. Here's more info. And yeah, the square footage on the tax record is 2,800 square feet, and it is a newer construction 2000 built. So it was demolished and rebuilt, or it was a lot and built. So it is not an expansion, which is good. This is the house that we saw. We take a look at the pictures. We see that overall the condition is in good shape. You know, kitchen was remodeled at some point. You know, it gives you a pretty good idea. There was a central air duct right here, so you can tell that at least it's got either central air or central heat. I don't see any other heat source like a baseboard or a radiator, so I'm going to assume that it's central heat. But we'll determine that when we get to the property. Big rooms, bathrooms out of date, but it's not beat up. Look, there are 2 condensers, so that tells me that there is central air. At the very least, there might be baseboard heat, but at the very least, it is central air, and there are 2, so that means that there are 2 machines. It's probably one for the upstairs and one for the downstairs, so it's very efficient. Tile, sliding door to the rear. This looks to be a ground floor. There's a lot of things you can infer from pictures, right? So this was the backyard, and you can see that it's level, so this must be the ground floor. You might come into that landing and go downstairs, and it does look like a separate kitchen. This kitchen is different than the one upstairs. So this is primarily looking like a bi-level home where you have a ground floor, like a summer kitchen, but it's not below grade. Like you see here, this is the same room. You can tell by the soffits up here. You can tell by the stove that's here in that kitchen area. This is the same stove. So you want to infer as much as you can from the pictures. So you have all of this information as you're looking for comparables. You need as much information as possible. So this is kind of my exercise of what I go through. Man, this is a ground floor. This looks like a family room downstairs. And then this looks like another room. Is it the same? It might, yeah, it's the same room. So this is actually has a separate entrance. So this looks like a room downstairs, which is considered a bedroom because it's above grade and the windows are open enough to be egress windows. So I'm already kind of getting a good idea of layout. Now this looks like it's upstairs. and there's no other heat source except for this, so I'm going to assume it's central heat and central air. You start making these assumptions so that you can prepare a CMA. When you get there, you have to be upfront with the seller and say, look, based off what I saw, these are my assumptions. Now, what can you do to prepare and not have to make so many assumptions? You can ask the question. So as you're looking through pictures, I normally have a little notepad with me. So I'll just take a little notepad and start writing things down, things that I am assuming based off of this and things that I know for certain. So I know for certain that this has central air conditioning. Why? Because I saw 2 condensers outside. So central air, 2 units. And I just start writing all this stuff down. And when I meet with the owner, I do the walkthrough. I let them, talk to me about the property. But when I sit down, I'm gonna sit and verify. Hey, look, I looked online. I found some information. Here are some assumptions that I made. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So start going through all of these with them, and they'll correct you. And this is why when we do a CMA, before we see the property, we give a range. At the end, you're going to see that I'm going to create a range of price. I'm not going to give a specific price because I don't know. I haven't seen the property just yet. Nice enough backyard. This seems like all of the information, right? So we'll go in here. They put it as a 5-bed, 3-bath. They listed it for $664. It's a single family built in 02. So there's a little discrepancy from the tax record. It says it was built in 2000, but it's not a huge discrepancy, no big deal. They don't have data on a couple things. So remember, Zillow uses their Zestimate, but they rely on data. So a lot of times when they don't have enough information, this could change the value of the home. So don't rely off of this if the information is not fully correct here. And I would never rely on Zestimates other than a ballpark, Then it says that the lot is 5,000 square feet. It is 50 by 100, so that is about 5,000 square feet. Then we're going to look at the description here. It says gorgeous concept, open concept, bi-level. So it is a bi-level. So we write that down because that's going to be important for comps. 5-bedroom, 3-bath. That's, again, important for comps. Now, we don't know if what they're labeling as a bedroom is actually a bedroom. So we're gonna kind of use what information we have and fine tune it. 5 minutes from Roosevelt Park train station. Well, that's a lie. We saw that it's a longer walk, but whatever. Manhattan, 15-minute drive to Newark Airport. That's true. Property owner information is there. Then we got more features here. Interior square footage is 2,800 square feet. Hugely important. Square footage is the biggest factor when it comes to residential real estate for comps. Working features, garage. It's a lot of information here. You're just kind of sift through it. Now, taxes. This is important. This is important not so much for value, right? Like an appraiser is not going to look at a property's taxes and say, okay, this house is worth more because the taxes are low. They don't look at it that way. But we as real estate agents, we know that the buyers do look at it that way. They look at it from an affordability perspective. So when a seller's looking at their house and they're looking on the market and like, oh, that house sold for, $650, but my house is nicer. Well, yeah, but if that house had taxes of $10,000 and yours are $15,000, you got to show them what that difference does for them. $5,000 a year divided by 12 is a $417 price difference a month. That's a big affordability factor. Okay, somebody can afford if every $10,000 costs about, let's say, $58 right now with interest rates. How many more tens of thousands of dollars could you afford? $71,000, which means that if I buy a house with $10,000 in taxes, I can afford almost $71,000 more in that property as opposed to buying a house with $15,000 in taxes. So it plays a big role in affordability, which is why I look at property taxes. But an appraiser is not going to look at it that way. So you have to see it, and you have to be able to elaborate why you're making those distinctions. Because what's going to happen is, especially with for sale by owners or anybody who wants to sell their home, they have an idea of what their house is worth based off of what they see. But they're not professionals. They don't look at all the details. So you need to be able to look at other properties that they're looking at, saying, well, my house is worth this because that house is worth that. And you need to be able to defend your position as a professional. And if you can't defend it, then you're probably not going to earn that listing. All right. So these are important factors. Scrolling down. It looks, this is another part that I really do like about Zillow, is that it gives you a quick overview of like listing history. So they listed this for sale by owner on August 12th. So it's very recent, right? And you can tell if it was for sale by owner or if it was a listing by realtor, because if you look at the last listing that they had in 2010, the source is from a Remax, right? So you can see that. And whereas here it says the source is the owner. So it's for sale by owner as opposed to for sale by an agent. So here you want to see if it was recently listed by another broker. And, if you know the broker, maybe you don't call them and say, hey, I'm going to go take that listing. But maybe you call and say, hey, I have a client and they're interested in this property next door or something. Just try to like keep it vague, or like, hey, I'm going to be listing a property in this neighborhood. I see that you had this listing and it expired. What went wrong? What happened? And then maybe they'll tell you kind of some things that you wouldn't otherwise know. So you can say, look, I'm listing a property a couple blocks away, or I'm looking at potentially taking a listing. What happened with the one that you had that expired? Like what happened to it? Oh, the taxes were so high. Everybody kept coming up to me and telling me the taxes were too high. So that might be an objection that you can know. So that's why it's worth looking at this. Taxes, you can see kind of like how they've been going up. On average, they go up about 2% annually. So this doesn't surprise me. There was a big jump here of 4.4%, and then there was a big decrease of 15%. So what probably happened is they probably did a tax appeal. They did a tax appeal at this point, and they dropped their property taxes, because property taxes never drop on their own. The municipalities only increase them anywhere between 2 to 4%. Some municipalities are able to keep them at zero, but if you see a reduction, especially at 15%, it's definitely because they did a tax appeal. So, this gives you a pretty good idea. You also can take a look and see when they purchased it. So they purchased it in 2011 for $285, and you know that the tax appeal was done in probably 2016, because the 2017 taxes are the ones that are reflective of it. So you know that this owner did it. So when you get over there and you start having conversations about taxes, they already know that their taxes are high. Why? Because they appealed them. They know, and they fought it, and they got them reduced. So this is good information. A lot of what I do when I prepare a CMA is just detective work. You're finding context for what you're about to talk about, and you'll see how all of this ties in later. That's pretty much all the information I can see here. They do have information about the school, so you have that. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, there's nothing more to really find out here. On the tax record, there's not much more else that you can find out that we already don't know. For example, we know the square footage, we know the year built, so I'm just gonna put that here, 2000. Although it's 2002 on the other part. This was updated. The zone is R1, 50 by 100. Taxes, sell information. So it hasn't sold since this owner bought it. They've owned it for 11 years now. 285. Yeah, in 2005, somebody bought it for 545, and then they sold again for 2085. I mean, 2005 was before the crisis and the recession hit, so that would make kind of sense. It was sold 3 times in 2005, so you can see kind of what happened there. That was craziness. Again, just try to wrap your head around all the information you possibly can. The other thing is some municipalities actually put their property cards on the record, and that can be very helpful for you. Not every municipality will have it, and especially when it's a newer property, you'll see this. So it's not going to give you everything, but it'll give you more than what you normally have. So you see here, the topography is level, the road is paved, it's a 2-story home bi-level, it's got aluminum siding or vinyl, so it's aluminum. It's vinyl because of the year that it was built. It's got some brick facade. The roof is a gable roof with shingle. Its a foundation is a concrete slab. There's no basement. So this again just kind of gives you more information, because as we're looking at comps, this is a factor for us, right? So bathrooms, it says 4 beds, 3 baths. Okay, so they counted it and listed it as a 5-bed, 3-bath. So okay, we can rely on the 3-bath, but there's something going on with the bedrooms. So when I do comps, I'm going to run 4 to 5 bedrooms. Why? Because my research is showing me 5. But imagine if I show up and they have a closet, or they have like a rail room, right? It's like you go into one room and then you go into another room. That's not a bedroom. So they were advertising as a 5. Imagine I do my CMA as a 5, but that then my numbers can be off, because a 5-bedroom is significantly more valuable than a 4-bedroom in some markets. So these are important things to note. Here it tells you first story is 1584 square feet, upper story is 1636, brick front, concrete slab, built-in garage 420 square feet, forced hot air, and the air conditioning. Look, there's a lot of information in this property card, so it's kind of good that we have it. have 4 fixture baths and you have 3 fixture baths. So what's a 3 fixture bath? Well, it's got 1 fixture is a toilet, 1 fixture is a vanity, 1 fixture is a shower. Sometimes with the 4 fixture, it could be like a tub. So that's kind of what it says. As long as it's a 3 fixture or 4 fixture, it's considered a full bath. If it's a 2 fixture, which is the sink and the toilet, then it's a half bath, right? It's got a fireplace, an open porch, and a patio. And then here's a diagram, right? So we have here, this entrance right here is a garage right here. And then you got the upstairs, and here's the layout, right? And then upstairs is bigger because it hangs over here. They got a little porch, and they got a patio in the rear. Bless you. So, you got some good information off of this that we otherwise wouldn't have. The other thing is I also look up the assessment postcard. Why? Because sometimes when you look at the taxes here, you see 2 different numbers. You see 15,258, and then you also see 15,366. So what's going on? When you hit the property tax card, you'll see that the taxes that were built for 2021 were 15,258. So that first number is 2021. That second number is typically 2022. So you do see that there's a price increase, but it's slight. But if you look at these 2 numbers, sometimes you're wondering which is the tax, or is it both added? Because in some municipalities, they report it as halves of the year. Like you have to add the numbers together to get the property taxes. So it's very helpful to open up the tax bill, and it says right here, the net property taxes bill for 2021 were 15,258. Solves any questions that you might have. So we've just gathered a bunch of information. We have a lot to go off of. Now we start down the road. All right. Typically, the NAR RPR is a longer process. We're gonna kind of go down this road kind of last. Oakwood Ave, Roselle Park. You'll see that there's a lot of tools here. We're gonna go down this road last. I typically go down the MLS road first because it gives me more context, and then I start building everything out. So this is already telling me a certain RVM, which is like their version of an estimated value. It's kind of like theirs estimate, but they're a lot more accurate than Zillow would be. Although Zillow has it close to it, 636, and then they have it at 643. We'll get into it. Let's go to the MLS. So the first thing I look is Union County, Roselle Park, and then I'm gonna look. Oh, these are the area statistics, right? So 6 months back from July, residential. So 4-bedroom and 5-bedroom is kind of what we're looking at. So there was a lot of 4 bedrooms. There was not so many 5 bedrooms. Active listings, they're ranging. So you can see, let me just highlight everything that we're going to look at. Okay, right here. So let me just make this bigger. All right. So we have the average list price is $470 for a bedroom and $493 for a 5+ bedroom. So that is important to note because there is a pretty big difference, right? If you look at a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom, there's a huge jump, right? And if you look from the 3-bedroom to the 4-bedroom, there's a $60,000 average list price jump. But from 4-bedroom to 5-bedroom, it's about $23,000, right? So it starts giving you these little context clues. So I already know that I'm between that. So Zillow's telling me 6 something. NARPR is showing me 6 something. And then the market data is showing me 493. So there's a big discrepancy, right? So now we're going to start kind of diving into why that is. New listings. So active, this is what we're competing against. So if somebody's looking in the market for a 5-bedroom home, there's 4 of them, and they're averaging around 493. So if I'm listed at 640, I better be drastically better than that property. So we're going to get into that in a bit. New listings, there's 5 new listings, and those new listings are averaging higher, 554. So the active ones that kind of are sitting on the market, they're at 493, whereas the new ones are sitting at 554. Again, big jump. Start noticing patterns, right? Under contract, there's 2 of them, and the average list price that they were before they went under contract was 512. Okay, so I'm seeing a northward trend, but I'm still not even close to that 600. Days on market, on average, the ones that are under contract were 28 and 25 days. So that's giving me a pretty good idea of how long it's taken to sell. And then over here, sold listing. The average 4-bedroom home sold for more than the average 5-bedroom home. Why? Well, it could just be based off of sheer volume. There's not that many 5-bedroom homes, but look, there was 21 4-bedroom homes that closed, and there was only 2 5+ bedroom homes that closed. So those 2 could be bank deals. Those 2 could be need of rehab. So you can't trust the data so much when there's not enough sample size. When there's a 21 sample size, you can trust the data a little bit more. But look, I'm close to the 500 range. and they're selling above asking or at asking. So that's pretty much the context that I have going into this. Now I'm gonna get into it and really just try to play around with it. This is my process when I look at comps. It's not an exact science. It's more of a art. You got to kind of touch and go. So first, I only look at sold. I try to just base purely off of sold. Why? Because that's what an appraiser looks at. When I go to list something, I got to look at actives and I got to look at under contracts. But this value, let's talk about what it's worth. I only look at sold. So, and I look at the last 6 months. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I take it from the beginning of the month. I don't care that it's the end of the month because I'm not doing an appraisal appointment, right? If I'm doing an appraisal appointment, I'm going to look a little more narrow. I'm going to be a little more specific. I'm just trying to get an idea of value. And I don't really check much off. You can try just searching for buy level because this is a buy level home, but I'm pretty sure we're not going to get too many hits. So if I were just to do it off of that and hit buy level, you're only getting one record. That's not reliable at all. So I'm not going to just do off of buy level. But if it's a colonial, I know there's a ton of colonials in Roseland Park. So I can search only through colonials. But I will say this, a lot of agents don't know what they're doing. So you'll see them brand or categorize a buy level as a colonial or a split level, and they don't even know. So again, the data is only as good as the people who are inputting it. And unfortunately, agents sometimes don't input things right. So I'm going to just look at everything. So my bare minimum search criteria is the municipality, that fact that it's actually sold, and that it's in the last 6 months. I'm not, and it's a one family. So I'm not doing anything else that's lower. So look, it's 76. It's a lot of results, right? First thing I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to sort it from the highest sold to the lowest sold, right? Because I know the ballpark. I know that I'm definitely not in the 200 range. Again, this is all the context of it. It's going to make your life a little easier. And for all intents and purposes, the owner's asking and thinking it's 664. Zillow's saying it's 632. You know, RVM is saying it's 643. So I know that if I'm looking at 300s, it's probably wrong, right? I mean, there's got to be a big mess up for it to be that to be the case. Now, unsold, it is showing me that only one property sold over $600,000 in Roosevelt Park. So that's a little worrisome, right? To try to hit that number. And we're gonna get into the actives later on. Actually, look, these were listed in the high fives, but they actually sold at 600. Only one property actually sold over 600. So that property, if he thinks it's worth 660, which is the number that he has in mind, we have to try to see how it compares to these three. It's got to be somewhere in between the three, right? Just to provide. And here's the excuse. It's not an excuse, but here's the reasoning. You don't want to offend the seller, right? You don't want to say, look, your house isn't worth what you think it is. That's not how you want to approach this. You want to say, look, I'm a real estate professional. I'm in the business. I got to tell you how it works, because some people think that they buy a house for 300 and they put 200K into it and it's worth 500, right? That's legitimately what people think. Or people say, look, I bought it for 5 and, I added X amount and then, I've paid it down. Like, they try to do all these weird calculus. What you have to do as a real estate professional is say to them, the only thing this house is worth is what somebody's willing to pay. And if somebody's getting a mortgage, the only thing they're going to be willing to pay is what it appraises for, right? Unless they're waiving appraisal, which was very common in the last 2 years, not so common right now. So this is where it really gets into it. It's not me that's saying it, it's the data, okay? So if the bank has to say and show the value, I need to be able to show the bank, here's a couple other properties that sold in the last 6 months that are similar to your property. So you approach this from the perspective of, this is why I'm doing this. This is why this report is handy. It's because I'm sure your house, look, I might think your house is worth $1 million and I want to give you $1 million, but I don't have $1 million out of pocket. I have to borrow from the bank. And because of that, the bank is going to do an appraisal. So this is the key function of how you present a CMA without offending the seller. Because in reality, you can say to them, look, your house is gorgeous. I think it's worth so much more. The problem is we just don't have the comps in this market, right? Unfortunately, we don't have the comps. If they're still motivated to sell, the only way they're going to get money is if it appraises. So that's the important thing here. So let's look at them. Starting from the top. Now, if the subject house is not a top of market house, like obviously I just saw the last 6 months of houses that sold in Roosevelt Park, the highest one that sold was 685. and this one wants 6 something. So this is a top of market house. So that's why I'm looking here. However, if your house is not top of market, you're gonna approach it a little differently. You're gonna try to narrow it down a little bit. You're gonna try to go with if it's a colonial 3-bedroom, you're gonna try to really narrow it down. So I'm looking at between a 4 to 5 bedroom, 3 bath, but it's also newer construction and it's 2,800 square feet. So these are the main factors. So when I pull up sold for 685, I see that it was built in 1958, and I see that the lot size is about the same. There is no square footage here. However, we're going to go back to the tax record. 116 West Colfax. And I've actually looked this comp up before, and I didn't pop up like that. Sometimes when you put the W, like if it's West, see how it came out at the end? So it's Colfax Ave W instead of W Colfax Ave. Just remove it and try to figure it out that way. If that doesn't work, what you can also do is run the block and lot. So if you look here, block 419 and lot 6, I can search that up and it'll come up every single time. So this house was built in 1958 and had 2,473 square feet. All right, so comp 1. All right, we're going to label this comp 1 just because it's in the price point, Colfax. So we're approaching this in 2 ways. We're trying to defend the value. I'm approaching it as like, look, I'm giving you a CMA. I'm not giving this to you. I'm preparing it so that when I meet the appraiser, I'm giving it to them and I'm defending the price. So that's kind of the mindset, right? So comp 1, because of the price point, how does that stack? Well, it was built in 1958. So let's start with year built, right? Because that's a big factor. We have a newer construction home. That's a big factor. So subject was built in 2000 or 2002, and comp 1 was built in 1958. So is our subject superior or inferior? It's superior. So I'll put a little plus sign next to it. I'm doing this on paper, but in a little bit, you're going to see me do it through the actual system. But I normally do it on paper first, and then I go on NAR RPR. RPR just has so much stuff that it's easier for me to do some stuff on paper and then just go on there and do it myself. Again, guys, there's many different ways to do things. This is my process. I'm teaching you the way that I do it. It could be right, could be wrong. It's what's worked for me for a long time. So the square footage is the next part. So I write square footage. And that my square feet is 2,800. His square feet is 2,473. So mine is superior, but it's close enough to comp out. You're going to see that the average colonial home is about 1,500 to 1,600 square feet. Some of them are a little smaller. So to get something in the 2,000s is a big difference. Now, what you also want to do, we'll do a price adjustment because our house is 327 square feet bigger. We'll do a price adjustment, and I'll show you guys how to do that. 1958, so we're superior on build date, we're superior on square footage. The taxes that they had were 13,897. Again, this is not an appraisal component, but when I'm comparing homes, my taxes are $2,000 higher. It is a factor, right? But this is close enough. It's not like I'm comparing 10,000 to 15,000. So this to me is close enough. Lot size is the same, right? So lot size is 50 by 100. This one is 50 by 100. So from the tax component, it's pretty solid. And from the bedrooms, so this is a 4-bedroom, where mine is either 4 or 5. We'll try to figure that out. So mine is either equal to or greater, right? So that's good. And then from the bathrooms component, this has 3.2 bathrooms. So it's 3 full, 2 half, whereas mine is 3.0. But you can adjust for it. Houses that you find don't have to be identical. They have to be comparable. And then you make adjustments. So you take it line by line. So if I have 3 full bathrooms and he has 3 full bathrooms plus 2 half baths, this is going to have an additional value there. How much? We'll get into that in a little bit. It was renovated in 2021, so that's going to factor in, right? Because ours isn't fully renovated now, but ours is a big new construction. So here it is. It's a split-level home, which isn't the same, but it is comparable. Now, even though it was renovated in 2021, the kitchen is not like the modern style, and it actually looks very similar to our comp. So this is why the pictures are important. It doesn't give that brand new renovation, right? Like it's got ceramic tiles on the floor. So this is important. Living room, it's got central air, doesn't have recessed lights. So I start adding things that are comparable. So HVAC looks like it does. So yes, yes. Hardwood floors. I mean, for all intents and purposes, if you look at our subject, it's very comparable to this property. From what I'm seeing so far. Laundry room. We're gonna look and see if it has a basement. It does have a basement, so that is different. So how can you tell something's a basement? Usually there's some context clues, right? These lolly columns are the supports for the main beam. You can see that the ceiling height is lower, and you need reference points. So I usually use doorways. If you look at doorways in the upstairs, there's usually a big header space above the doorway. If you look at header space above in a basement, it's very low. So that tells me that this is a basement. The fact that I don't see any windows kind of points to it being a basement, and then these lolly columns also tell me it's a basement. So basement, yes, where ours is no. And while it doesn't count for finished square footage, it does account for space, and it is a marketable feature. Now, here in this picture, I can definitely tell you it's a basement, right? You have these types of windows, which are basement windows, and then you have the electric panel, which the majority of homes have their electric panels in the basement. Before the newer constructions have them in the garage. Has a wet bar. It's a really cool feature. It's got a 2-car garage. So so the garage. Let's write garage. That's another line. So we have a 2-car garage, and he has a 2-car garage. So I mean, for a lot of purposes, this is a solid comp, right? Because it's sold at 685, which is more than what our guy's asking, but ours has better things. It's a newer construction. It's got more square footage, potentially has one additional bedroom, and everything else seems to be about the same. So why is this one not selling and that one did sell? So let's look at when it closed. It closed in April. Okay. So the market has shifted in the last 2 months. So this did close before that market shift happened. The first interest rate hike happened in March, if I'm not mistaken. It was like end of February. They started going up slowly in January, but like the big jump where everybody got scared, that was like in March. That's very important context to have. So look, this one went under contract at the end of January. So this buyer might have been locked in for a lower rate. Okay. So again, you need to hit this from the angle of I need to explain why everything. Why everything. So why did this one sell for 685 and he listed his for 6 something and it's not selling and yours is better, right? Well, I got to try to point to something. And right now, what I'm kind of hanging my hat on is that it went under contract at the end of January when the rates were still lower, and it closed before even another jumped, right? So under my notes here, so I have comp 1 and subject, and I have all these different factors. I'm also going to add a note section at the bottom. And on notes or remarks, I'm going to put what I'm talking about here. So for notes, went under contract 1/27/22, and then if you're not 100% sure when the mortgage rates jumped, mortgage rates year to date. We're going to look at News Daily, and we're going to try to see the curve, right? So if you look here at this is in June. So if you look here, that one went under contract on January 27th. And look, we were about 3.5. Okay. Where do we see a huge jump? I think this was about the bottom, and then you see a big jump to 5.5 in May. So between March and May is when everything started climbing. And then you have another huge jump here, right? When it hit the 6. So when they went under contract, they were still in the 3s, presumably. We don't know the buyer. We don't know a lot of information. Can we find out? Actually, we can. You guys know sometimes I go on tangents because I think they're valuable, and I'm going to do it now. My trainings could be longer, but I think that you guys will see the benefit here. So I'm going to use my Central Jersey MLS because I use Remind through it. We all have it through Garden State MLS. Let's pull up Remind. Let's look up, this was 116 West Colfax. You guys know that some information we could actually find, sometimes we could find what people's interest rates were. And Remine is a great pooling of information for this. It's kind of like it's like better than Zillow's stuff. So 116 West Colfax. So this property, you're going to scroll down to mortgage history. You're going to see that they closed in 22. Yeah, so like back in 2010, you could actually see that their estimated rate was 4.99. This rate right now, they have a 0, so I don't think we're going to have the information yet. So sometimes the rate is here, sometimes it's not. Like the 06, I see that it was at 6.88. So you can see a lot of information right here. Right now, I guess because of how recent it is, they haven't updated it. At some point, they will probably put the percentage in here. It didn't work out here, but you guys can see how we can find these things out. So back to the main point is like, look, this one went under contract at the end of January, where rates, and again, we don't know what this buyer got, but the rates were about in the low threes, low to mid threes. So whereas now, if somebody was going under contract, their rate's going to be in the high fives. Okay, and this is assuming best credit conditions. Imagine they're not, the buyer isn't in the best credit condition. So you're talking about essentially almost double in rate. And that makes a huge difference in affordability. You need to be able to have these conversations because the seller is thinking, holy crap, that house sold on West Colfax, and West Colfax is a busier road than mine, right? So like that's another factor. You have to try to look at the way you analyze your main property, you have to analyze every subject. So here's West Colfax, right? So it is in the general area. So this is where our property was. It was this side of town. So it was on Oakwood. It was like right over here. And then this is West Colfax. So it's right here and over here. It's assigned to the same school. It's very similar feeling neighborhoods. But West Colfax is a main road. Not a main road, but a busier road, a double striped yellow line. So if that guy is looking, the seller's looking at this, and look, there's a liquor store and a food store right there. He's looking at like, holy crap, that house got $685,000, and my house is in a beautiful area, newer construction, bigger, all these different factors. He's right. He's looking at it in this way. So what can you say to justify why his house isn't worth as much as that house? Well, the affordability is different. You missed the market. You missed that wave of market. This is the impact that we talked about a couple months ago when we were talking about things shifting, right? If you look at somebody's mortgage calculator today, and again, guys, I elaborate so much because when you sit with your seller and you're able to articulate all these different points, they're going, damn, okay, I get it. I see what happened, right? If he wanted 664, was it? Yeah, 664. If he wanted $664,000 for this property, 30-year monthly payment, right now with interest rates being higher, and this is higher than even what we saw, 43.56 on just that alone. Let's include taxes and fees because he has a tax difference here. 20% down. Wait, home price. That's not correct. 644.3. 20% down. 30-year. This interest rate is pretty low. What I'm going off of here, the average, you're just talking about 30-year fixed average, right? Mortgage News Daily has it at 5.3. MBA has it at 5.65. And Freddie Mac has it at 5 point something here. Can't quite get the line, but you get the idea. Is 5.5. So they're around the 5.7. Let's just average it out. 5.7. And then New Jersey, let's say the credit score is around here. And then the property taxes that we have are $15,259. Homeowners insurance is probably, let's call it like $1,300. Right? So you're talking about a $43.70 monthly payment, right? Let's this is his today, right? $43.70. Let's look at that one back then. So that one closed for $685. So it was higher. But assume the same conditions, but let's say They locked their rate in at the end of January. And it was 3.7, 3.5, 3.69. Let's call it 3.7. 3.7. Same conditions, and their property taxes were lower. They're 13,897. 13. It's a monthly payment of 37.88. So now what we do is we take out the calculator and we show them. Your same buyer today will pay about 43.70, whereas that buyer is paying about 37.88. That's about $600 in difference. It's a big factor. It's a big factor, right? It's a big affordability factor. So that's what you need to use to try to explain. Yes, I can comp your house out. It is comparable based on all the criteria that we discussed. However, the affordability factor is no longer there. Your buyer today is paying an extra $600 a month. How much is that a year? Well, 582 times 12. It's an extra $7,000 more a month. Okay, it's a big difference. So, Mr. Seller, I'm sorry to say that the reason why, even though I agree with you, your home is better than this home, is not selling for the same price, is because the interest rates went up. You missed that height of that cheap buyer market where people could afford more. So that's why I have to say that yes, I can get your home to comp, but I can't get somebody to give you that much because the affordability isn't fully there. All right. So now the next question becomes, well, what can you get? Right. So if you can't get me the same price, how much is my house worth? So because we're in this market where we have a big shift in price points, one of the things that I like to do, and I only looked at one comp because that was enough. That was enough for me to see why it's not selling. When you're coming to a FSBO, you have to show them why it's not selling for that price, right? So I have enough to show off of there. When you're coming to, okay, well, what is my house worth? Well, now instead of looking at 6 months, the biggest factor in our market is about here. You see how this line has pretty much been up here, shot up right above 6, and then went back down right under 6. I'm looking at maybe June, right? Anything that closed since June, and not necessarily closed since June, because something that closed in June that locked in their rate in April, right? So I'm going to look at really the last 3 months. So June, July, and August. I'm going to look at just those 3 months, and the closer that we're here, then the better. So I'm going to go to June and June 1st. Okay. Okay, so there's 37 records. So that should have some. And then again, I'm going to sort it by sold price because there's a lot of like 2-bedroom condos and stuff like that. All right. Now we do have one that sold at 600. All right. Let's look at that one. So this one closed June 24th. Now the problem is it did get locked in May 16th. So when that got locked in, we were at about, let's assume it was towards the end. We're about 5.3. Where today we're at about 5.7. So that's a much more plausible difference in rate, right? That's 0.3 or what they call 30 basis points. Whereas right now, the other one we're looking at a 3% difference, right? So this one here closed for 600. It was a 4-bed, so let's do comp 2. Comp 2. And 575 East Grant. Year built 1968. So again, ours is superior. Square footage is not listed here. We'll pull it up in a minute. The lot size is 6,000 square feet, which is bigger. So that's I'll pull up and see what that dimension is like. 4 beds, 2.2 baths. So similar. 4 and then 2.2. 68, 600. Center Hall Colonial. It's a colonial, but a colonial is comparable to a bi-level. 4-bedroom home. Timeless moldings, wood, wet bar. New eating kitchen in 2020. So they did renovate the cabinets and the quartz. 3 bedrooms upstairs, including an updated main bath, suite. Fourth bedroom is via living room. New roof in 2018, central air, so it has HVAC, yes. Washer, alarm system. Okay, so it seems solid. Let's look at the pictures and see how it stacks. It does have radiant heat, right? So that's a negative. So on HVAC we're gonna put AC, but radiant heat. Radiant. Right? It's unsightly. It's not as efficient. Things like that. It's got this little office area here. Dining room's gonna be smaller. The kitchen is nice, renovated. Smaller than ours. Bedrooms are decent size, older style, right? Yeah, even the bathroom is more similar to our subject. I mean, yeah. So I think it's a solid. Does have a basement. So we're gonna put in here basement, yes, and does have an attic. That's, I guess, where one of the other bedrooms are. Okay, backyard is not as nicely laid out. It looks like it's a corner property. Yeah, so what happens here is this is a corner property, and while it is big, a lot of that space is up here, and it's not really usable, right? Because you can't put a 6-foot fence up here, and you don't have that privacy. So the backyard is really this. So it is a smaller backyard, which is definitely a factor when you're talking about comps per. Now let's look at the tax record. And this was 575. And it is East Grant, but remember I learned my lesson before. I hit East and look, it comes out at the end. So I just wrote Grant. So let's just verify that it's the same property. Where the hell? 570 East Grant. Did I search 575? Yeah, I searched up 575. But it's actually 570. No. This is a different comp. Oh well, there's a couple houses that sold there. Yep, here it is, 575 East Grant. And it's block 1017, lot 36. Block 1017, lot 36. So it is the same property. Square footage is 1835. So we write that down, 1835, which ours is superior. The lot size is 6,000 square feet. When you see it written down as like 1,000 square feet rather than like X by X, it means that it's in a regular lot for the most part. And we saw that it is irregular, right? It's like a corner, it's like a triangle lot. So we're just going off of 6,000 square feet as opposed to 5,000 square feet. So on paper, it does have more land, but in reality, it's less usable land. So that's an important factor. The taxes are 12,300, which is comparable to ours at like 15,000. And what else? What other factors? Bedrooms, baths, garage. Does have a garage? Let's look down here. Garage, one car detached garage. And then the square footage that we have here, the monthly payment. All right, so this is going to be more comparable. Ours is better in terms of square footage. It's about 1,000 square feet bigger, which is a huge factor. But this does provide us a good base. So what you say to him is like, look, your house in the last 3 months after the rates jumped, the highest sold property was 600K. So, I get what you're saying, but we got to look at the current market. But good news is I think your house is worth more than that house because of these factors. So I'll show you how to do adjustments. So let's use that one. And now that I've kind of set a basis, I know that this house is worth at least 600K. So I don't even have to look in the 400s, right? Look, these are different types of homes. These are much smaller homes. And the problem is with the Garden State MLS, because agents don't usually put the square footage here. Some do, some don't. You're not going to be able to like quickly search it. Some other MLSs are much better. Now, when you look at this, you say to him, look, the average sales price when I looked at the comparisons were in the 400s and 500 range. But also, all those properties were 1,000 square foot smaller than yours. So this is important because when you're presenting to an appraiser and the appraiser says, look, you're the only thing selling for 650 in the last 6 months, Well, you say, yes, Mr. Appraiser, but look, I'm over 1,000 square feet bigger than all of these comps, right? This is how you have those conversations. So this one sold for 560. It was a 4-bed, 2-bath. I'm going to start going a little faster now because I really broke it down slowly. But now I'm just going to get into it the way I look at it. So look, it's a nice home. It's very comparable in condition. Kitchen wise, paint wise, it is wood floors. Rooms are about the same size, but basement, it does have it. But it's over 1,000 square feet smaller than mine. It's 56 by 85. My lot is bigger. Oh, look at this. The property is not located in a flood zone. Mine is neither. So that's good. Taxes are lower. And then you start looking also at location. Roseville Park is a 1 square mile town. So it's kind of easy because it's close. Like our property is here and this property is here. And if you look at the map, it's less than a mile. However, what I will say is that there is an east side of Roseville Park and a west side. So this is east side and this is west side. And this little section sells well, but this section of the west side is a little more industrial mix. So it doesn't sell as well as the east side, which is all residential. So important things to know about your market, right? In this case, it is a comparable though. And I'm gonna keep this as a comp. So select, and then in here, I'm trying to prove a point. I know that my house is worth over 600, but I'm not going to find the comps, right? You guys understand that. I'm not going to find the comps because in the last 3 months, there's been nothing that's sold around there. So what do I got to do? I got to just get the highest sold comps and show that my house is worth more than that. So this one here, again, kitchen is very comparable. It's got carpeting, so it's definitely lesser in condition. It's got a basement. Yard is nice. It's 60 by 110, so it's a bigger lot. It's got a 1-car garage. Sold for 530. I don't have a square footage here. 570 East Grant. Let's find that. This one had 1828. Okay, that's very good. 570 East Grant at 1828. So based on the comps that I'm finding, on the ones that are more recent, right? You got to tell them, look, this is the affordability component of it, right? When I come to do your comps, I have no problem. And this is a real honest conversation that I have with sellers all the time. And I say to them, guys, I know your house can comp for more. The problem is people are not going to pay for it because of the affordability. Some sellers don't understand that there's a difference between affordability and comparability, right? You could compare it and see that it's worth it, but people are not going to pay it anymore. It's like, let's say, God forbid, there's a war today. Nobody's going to commit themselves to a huge loan, even though that house next door sold for $1 million yesterday, right? Those are the scenarios that you have to explain to them and say, if you need to sell your home now, you have to look at the conditions now. Can I prove that it's worth more? Sure, I can, but nobody's going to pay that, as we're seeing. So I'm going to take the highest 3 homes that sold in Roseville Park. Okay, so the highest 3 were 600, 560, and 530. That's the bag of chips that I got, right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to prove why yours is worth more and how much is it worth. So now we're going to hop over to RPR. Well, I guess before I jump over, is there any questions from anybody right now as to the items that I just discussed? Anything on the chat? No? All right, so let's continue. Let's hop on RPR. So this is the property that we're trying to comp out. Okay. We are going to create a CMA. So there's a button right here, clear as day, create CMA. But before you hop in there, the first thing I will tell you is go into Property Facts and start plugging things in. It's a single family. Yes, it is. Don't change anything. Single family home. Don't change anything. Bedrooms. There's no bedroom count on here. I want to say 4 because that's what the tax record says. If there's a 5th, if there's a legitimate 5th when we get out there, great. We adjust a little bit more in value. Total baths, there's a 3-bath, and they're full baths, and there's 0 partial baths. Living area is 2,800. If it's written here, it's not a change, so you don't have to do anything on this column. Lot size, you don't have to change anything. Garage, yes, so you don't have to change anything. Year built, 2000. Frame construction, 2 stories. You can also add in a couple other things. If it has a basement, if it has cooling. So Basement, I don't think is going to be a factor so much because there's no other homes that like it's not like we're looking at a bunch of homes that didn't have basements, but they had things that this one doesn't. All of them have basements except for this one, but this one has things that others don't. So I'm not really going to worry about that. Cooling, I think, is a factor, right? So we're going to put in here central. That's important. Then I'm going to see what other factors there are. Garage spaces. This one has a 2-car garage, whereas most of them have a 1-car garage. So that is a factor. Number of units, pool, roofing. So if it had a pool, definitely something that you would put in. So for now, this is kind of what it is. And you could create custom facts, which let's not get into it, but let's say you're dealing with a really, really custom home. You can include that. So for now, I'm just going to save those items. There's a lot of other factors here. It's not in a flood zone. There's a lot of things that we don't have to really mess with right now. All right. So once we have that, we proceed to the next stage. We can add some notes, but I'm really going to get into it in the CMA. So let's create a CMA. So once you hit create the CMA, there's a lot of things that are going to pop up. You can do a comparative analysis, or you can do a sales comparative analysis. So you can build it just off of comps, or you can do a more detailed evaluation. I think in this case, we have to do a sales comparison analysis because, yeah, so the good thing here, we're not an appraiser, so we're going to skip this step. The reason why I like this is that this simulates an appraisal, right? But you don't have to be an appraiser to do it because this is not an appraisal. If you are an appraiser, you can state it there. So I'm going to do it. Why? Because if it's just a comp, like if you have a lot of homes that are very similar to it, you can just do a comparative analysis. Simple. This home is a little different. So we have to do a sales comparison and then do adjustments. So the first step to this, it's a quick walkthrough. It's really, really cool because it gives you steps. So the first step is confirming facts. I just did it on the prior screen. So if you hadn't done it, you would do it here. The quality of construction, we don't really have to deal with all this stuff. The location, I think, is important if you're if your house is on a main road, right? If your house is on a main road, you got to attribute to that. Or like if it backs up to an industrial zone and things like that. But because we're not, we don't have to attribute to it. So you guys now are seeing why I did all that research in the beginning. Because when I get in here, I need to know which fields are going to be the ones that are going to be important here. So I'm just going to go ahead and confirm facts. So that's that. Number 2 is search for comps. So let's find the comps. I didn't even look at actives, right? I didn't look at under contracts. Now I will look at it. We could also add known properties, which we already searched, but I want to show you guys kind of how this does it. So we're looking at single families, active for sale, under contract, or closed. I don't need to really search an area because, again, Roosevelt Park is 1 square mile, and there's not a lot of comps, so I'm not going to limit myself. And then we're going to look within the last 3 months. Remember, guys, the market shifted. In the last 3 months, we've seen about the same rate. So that's what we're going to use. Proximity, I don't need to do. Bedrooms, I'm going to do anywhere between 3 and 5. Baths, I'm going to do anywhere between 2 and 4. Square footage, here's the thing. It is important, but remember, not all of these properties have square footages listed. So if I type in just looking minimum 2,100 square feet, it's not going to show me much, right? This range is 700 square feet under and 700 square feet over. Some people, when they list a property, will put 999 as square footage. So even though that might be a good comp, the system might not catch it because they wrote 999. So I typically uncheck square footage and I manually check it with the tax record. It's a little more work, but it's what you need to do to get accuracy. Price point here, I'm not going to limit myself to a range, or you could, because in reality, you know that there's going to be a lot of comps that pop up, but I know that this house is not worth less than 600. But I also know that there's a lot of comps that are below 500. So I'm not even going to bother looking at anything less than 500. Again, this is all the context that we did through the MLS, and that's the reason why I do it first. Year built, I'm not going to put because there's not a lot of new construction, number 1. And number 2, the agents sometimes don't put the year built correctly. You might see in here 999. It looks like for the most part, agents have been good in Roosevelt Park and they actually have them. But sometimes if you look at Elizabeth, I know for a fact a lot of agents just put 999. And it could also deal with, look right here. But if I look this up, oh God, I know. Yeah, I know this property. I think I sold this one a couple years back. Well, yeah. So that's the information. That's why I don't limit it here. So we're not gonna put that, and we're gonna hit search. So it's kind of like an MLS. Here's another problem. It's actually showing me houses in Kenilworth. This is Kenilworth right here. So a lot of these comps are gonna pop up. It's Kenilworth. So let's go back, modify search, and sometimes when the towns are similar and you don't have enough comps, you may be able to use those, but in this case, you can't. I guess the only other way for me to sort it out.
See, there's a proximity with them. Is that where you would change it next to that, to the left?
Well, I mean, but this home could be closer than some of the homes in Roseville Park because of the proximity. So proximity wouldn't be the way to do it. I would probably just draw a shape because I know like the boundaries of Roseville Park. So like if I zoom out a little bit, I know that we kind of end at the Parkway. Or like let's not mess with it too much. Let's just go through it, and then when you look and you see Kenilworth, you ignore it. Okay. However, I will say that these are things that we could use, right? If you have no comps and nothing is really close to it, and I show somebody the appraiser, look, this home in Kenilworth, like let's look at this home in Kenilworth. This home in Kenilworth is similar. Look, it's actually very identical to from the outside, right? Very, very similar, right? It's a very similar house, and it's within like a mile, but it's uglier. This might be an actual comp. Let's not get into it because we're not appraisers. I've taken a lot of appraisal courses. I really suggest that you guys do it when you go down to the convention. Take appraisal classes. There are ways that you can use these types of comps. Let's not mess with that right now. Here, this is 536 Oak Street, Roselle Park. It's not one of the comps that we saw, and here it is. Why? It's because it sold for 521. So I didn't even go down that road. I can kind of go down and find it. They're probably sorting it. Look, it's sorted by proximity. So the houses that close the closest are the ones that it's showing you. Because why? Those are the ones that you should put a little more priority in normal situations. However, in this particular case, I'm going to sort it by price. Now, it's using homes in Cranford. Now you're getting into different school districts and different factors. So I'm definitely going to go ahead and skip this. But it's also showing me that the houses that close within, and look, I mean, this is 0.29 miles. This home is half a mile from this home in Cranford, but it is a different home. However, you may be able to show this to an appraiser. I don't think we're going to have this problem. Why? Because he put it for sale by owner and he's not getting offers at that price point. So it's not like I'm trying to prove that it's 765. Different story is if I listed it and then I get an offer for 700 and I have no comps in Roselle Park, then I'm going to go and when I meet with the appraiser, I'm going to look at these comps. That's a different function, right? So in this case, we're looking for Kenilworth, Union, Cranford. Why? These are the homes that sold for higher than 600. And we know that in Roselle Park, we don't have those. Roselle Park, here we go. Finally found one at 600, 575 East Grant. That's the first one that we looked at. So we already saw this, but if you hadn't seen it, all you have to do is click this here, and it's going to lead you to another page, and you're going to get to look at it the way we looked at it on the MLS. And honestly, sometimes you get to look more information, really. Look, so the pictures are actually bigger than on the MLS, unless you, they look, so it's actually pretty cool. I do it through the MLS just because of those other things that I told you. But you could easily do all of this on NAR RPR, and it gives you a lot of information. The close price was 600, 4 beds, 4 baths, single family, was on the market for 65 days. Here's the description. Here's the listing facts, right? Here's how it compares. We already know this property, so we don't have to get into it. But definitely this one comped. So let's add it to the comp list. Okay. Union, Elizabeth, Roselle, Kenilworth, Union, Roselle, Elizabeth. Yeah, next time we're definitely gonna have to sort it out because there's a lot of properties that didn't pop up. Here's 455 Madison. I don't think we saw this one. 455 Madison. Oh yeah, that was the second one. Perfect. So we're gonna add that to the list. And then this is Cranford, this is Kenilworth, Roselle. All you really need is 3. And this is the last one that we saw, 570 East Grant. So we're gonna add that to the comps list. Now, these are all closed, right? Now, what I'm gonna search is I also want to look at actives because we didn't look at actives at all, right? Before. So on I guess we can't. These are sold, and these are right here for sale properties. So these are in Elizabeth, Kenilworth, Union, but these play a bigger role, even of a different town, except that you have to know about school district and you have to know about a lot of things. This is a new construction home being developed right now. Let's take a look at it. In age, our home is closer to some of these new constructions than they are to some of the comps, right? Some of these comps were built in 1958, so you're talking about 70 years ago, whereas ours was built in 2000 and this is being built in 22. You're talking about 20 years, right? So you could use this as a comparable, except you have to adjust down. This is a terrible graphic, so it's kind of hard. But they listed it for $679. So you could kind of see how, like, oh look, this new construction home is active for $679. Well, look, Mr. Seller, you're selling your home for $660, but they could buy a new construction for $679. That is important information to know. I'm not gonna add it. Here's one for $659. All right. So let's take a look at that one. Really, really nice. All right. Open concept. It looks like they have new flooring, recessed lighting, lots of natural light. Look at that kitchen. Oh, I love these chandeliers. It's really nice. So you can see how modern it is, how open the concept is, how much natural lighting. This is a really nice property. Yeah, yeah. Outdoors nice. Now, of course, it's not a new construction, right? But it is listed for $659. So this is going to be our competition, right? And the important thing is let's find out how long it's been on the market. Well, it's only been on the market for less than a month. It was listed on August 6th. So one of the things I could do is I could call the agent and I can ask them, hey, how much activity have you gotten on this property at that price point? And if he tells me, look, I've gotten like 1 or 2 showings a week, guess what? Whether it's good or bad, it's information. So when I'm talking to my client about the property and I say, look, this house was listed around the same price point and they're only getting 2 showings a week, that's a very important thing for me to know because I can set expectations. So another thing, before, houses were moving quickly. Within the first week they were listed, they were gone, right? Now when you're taking listing appointments, people are hearing this. You need to be able to give an estimate or an idea. So if I'm calling agents and saying, hey, how many showings are you getting? I can tell my client, look, I need to do a 6-month listing agreement. Maybe before you were okay with doing a 3-month listing agreement, I'll tell you right now, that doesn't make sense. You might have to do a 6-month listing agreement. So this home is comparable. It's a 3-bed, 3-bath, but look, it's got only 1,240 square feet. That to me doesn't seem right. This home definitely looks bigger, but on the tax record, it was only 1,240 square feet. But it is a comparable. I mean, it's a smaller lot. And it was built obviously later, less bedrooms. So we are a nicer property than this one, but it is active, So it's not telling me too much. I will add this to the comps list though. Bradford, Union, Roselle Park. So this one's on East Lincoln. It's listed for $625. Been on the market 133 days. So that's important too, because if this house is better than ours, then I can tell them, look, that one's better than ours and it's listed for less and it still hasn't sold, right? That's where those things matter. It is on East Lincoln, so it is a busier road. I mean, it looks humongous. It looks like it has more square footage too, so we'll take a look at that. I'm kind of hoping that the interior is ugly. And it is, thank God. Because no, seriously, this is impacting you, right? Like if this house isn't selling, yeah, these are the types of things that you start kind of look. It's got a window AC, it's got wallpaper, kitchen is old, it's outdated. Whoa, yeah, this is.
They're gonna have fun taking that bed out of there.
Oh yeah, and look, it has 2 kitchens like ours, so this is a comparable, right? This is definitely a comparable, but it's not selling. Is this a 3rd kitchen?
It's like a whole nother basement.
Yeah, they got 3
That's
kitchens
nice,
up in there.
though. You
Yeah.
can work down there.
I'll tell you one thing. This is a bedroom in the basement and a full kitchen. This thing's gonna have an issue with COs. And it's got a big attic. This home is pretty dope, right? It's got a big backyard. Looks like it has plenty of square footage. It's pretty much a 3-family. Humongous, right? Listed for $625, 4 beds, 3 baths. 609, 133 days. Where's the square footage of the home? It's got 3,133 square feet. It's actually bigger than ours, right? So this is kind of a concern, right? Because it's been listed. Oh wait, look, it went pending. It got listed in April, and it did take a contract in May. I can call the agent and kind of find out what happened. It's good to be able to have a conversation about what happened. It is bigger lot size, right? It's not in a flood zone. So there's a lot of information here. One second. There's a lot of information on here. Wonder what the year built was. Hey, how are you? Good, good. Quick question. 122 East Lincoln Ave in Roseville Park. You guys had it. I think it went under contract in May, but it came back out. Would you mind sharing what happened? Sure. Let's put this. 122 East Lincoln. Sure. There's no year built. But yeah, it is 3,000 plus square feet. Taxes are 15. It's a comp. Oh, it is under contract? Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. It is under contract. I'm gonna find out how much it was for. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes, agents won't tell you. That wasn't the agent, so I will find out in a second. And tell you guys. So this is a really good thing because this is a comp, right? It's a big home. It's got a 2-car garage. It's less as far as like the condition, but it is under contract. It's around the same price point. The taxes are similar. This is a really good property for me to bring up in that appointment with CMA. And then knowing how much it's under contract for is going to be a huge factor. I may not be able to know every single one of them, but I will know when I know the agent, right? So let's see here. John Street, Cranford. I think I have enough to move on to the next step. This one here is pending, 575. This one's on Bender. Okay, so I'll add it to the comps list. All right, so once you've selected all your comps, and you're gonna see how thorough this is, we update the valuation. Now look, I have 6 comps, and the range is anywhere between 530 to 660. You can go back in here and edit. If you find something, if you look at active, you can go in here and edit at any moment. But once you're done, we make adjustments. This is the biggest factor. This is the most important part of this whole training. One of the things that I do is you have to use appraisals. If you guys are doing any deals, you have to make sure you're saving the appraisals, because when you're doing appraisals, you have comparables to go off of. Let me just look for one in Roseville Park that I did recently. I sold 123 Bender. So I'll use 123 Bender. The main information you're gonna get is off of appraisals. So always keep appraisal reports. If you're on the buyer side, save them. If you're on the seller side, request them. Because when you're looking at doing a listing in a certain market, you have to look at the appraisal from that market. Now, the date of the appraisal is not so important because you're not using the actual numbers that they use. You're looking at the adjustments. So if you looked at an appraisal before, you see here you have a subject property and then you have comparable properties, right? What you're looking for is these little changes, what they call adjustments. So look, this home had 3 bedrooms, 1.1 bathrooms. This home had 4 bedrooms, 2.1 bathrooms. So what's the biggest difference? This home had 1 bedroom less and 1 full bathroom less. He subtracted $5,000. Okay, so like, how do you know how much to factor in for a bedroom? How do you know? Well, sometimes the only way to know is to look at these comps because we're not appraisers. So I have to look at what the appraisers have done, right? So this one was 3 bed, 1 bath. Ours is 3 bed, 1.5 bath. The only difference between these two homes was the half bath, which means he put $2,500. So because you have an extra half bath, he's giving it $2,500. So that's where I start kind of like writing down. If I look at a comp, all right, so a half bath in Roselle Park is worth about $2,500. And by
The extra bedroom is worth 3,000.
well, it's kind of hard to tell. And the question was, does that mean that the extra bedroom was worth 3,000? It's kind of hard to tell because this one has an extra full bath and an extra bedroom. So it's kind of hard to tell independently. You're going to try to find something that has only one change and try to figure it out like that. So this one has an extra full bath, but 1 less half bath and 1 plus bath. So it's like, it's kind of hard, right? I'll scroll down and try to get an idea at the next one because there might be other comps that do have that. Let me see if there's something with the same bath count but with a different bedroom count. So this one here has 3 beds, 2 baths. Again, a half bathroom difference, 2,500. This one has a 4 bed. There's a 5,000. So he's not giving a big adjustment between 3 beds and 2 baths, right? Because if we know that a half bath is worth 2,500, and here you have a full bath difference so the difference of a 1 bedroom and a 1 full bathroom is only $5,000. That's not a big difference, right? In substance, a lot of properties, there's no big difference between 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms, but there can be a big difference between a 4 bedroom and a 5 bedroom. Okay, so that's not the case here. I don't know for a fact. So I just know the half bath is worth about $2,500, right? This is the main adjustment that I want to find out. It's the square footage. This home was $1,365, while that home was $2,000, and he took away $22,000. Okay, the biggest adjustments come from square footage, and I'll say that again. The biggest adjustments in residential real estate come from square footage. We are not experts in this area, so I can only go off of the adjustments that an appraiser has already done. If you yourself don't have an appraisal from that area, ask me. I probably do, or ask other colleagues. I don't know why agents don't do this more. It's a hugely important thing. So let's look. If that property subject was 2,006 square feet right here, and mine was 1,365 square feet, the difference is 641 square feet. He took away $22,400. So that's how many dollars per square foot? Let's find out. 22,400. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the other way around. 22,400 square feet divided by 641 square feet. It's $34.94. So it's $35 a square foot. So right now it's $35 a square foot. This is for one. Let's see if he applied it evenly. Because if he didn't apply it evenly, there's a different issue. This one is 1,835 minus 1,365. 470. 16,500 divided by 470. You guys see where I'm pulling these numbers, right? 16,500 is the adjustment. These are the square footage of the second comp. This is the subject. $35 a square foot. So consistently, he's doing about $35 a square foot. Huge, huge, huge big up for me. Because remember, the biggest factor in price difference was square footage. So now that we have the price per square foot that the appraiser is using, we go to our comps and we're going to be able to determine how to adjust for it.
Right.
Now, condition is another factor. I tried to find things in the same condition. This home was a C4. It needed renovations. This home was a C3, which means that it needed renovations, but it's in livable shape. He gave $20,000 in value for that. Okay, so if we have our home is a little nicer than another home that needs more work, then there's $20,000 value. Now, none of these are C2. He didn't use C2 because C2 is renovated recently. C1 is new construction, never lived in. C2 is recent renovation, not lived in, like a flip. And then C3 is good condition, livable. So those are the types of things that you have to adjust for. We can get into the rest of this stuff, but like, for example, this had radiant heat and central air are comparable. CA means central air. The subject had radiant heat, but no central air. So he gave $10,000 in value for central air. So we know that central air is $10,000. This is why it's important. We're not appraisers, guys. We can't figure these numbers out. So what do? We go off of appraisals and we use those. And this is how I've been able to challenge many appraisers. Because it's not me, because a lot of appraisers get cocky and like, oh, you're not an appraiser, you're a realtor. Yes, but I'm using another licensed appraiser's number. It's not, I'm not bringing this up out of nowhere. So this is an important thing. Basements, you're going to be able to see, this says that this has a 525 square foot, 0 square foot finished basement. So it's an unfinished basement. This is a 900 square foot basement. So even though the basement is almost double in size, he didn't make any adjustment. There's really no price difference for the bigger basement. There is a price difference when there is a finished basement. So this is a 700 square foot basement and 700 square feet are finished. And there's one room and one bath. So he gave $10,000 in value for a finished basement. So here's another one, right? So a finished basement in Roselle Park is worth about $10,000. This is how you start getting a lot of these adjustments, all right? What's another thing? Garage. So this is a 1-car garage with a 2-car driveway. You got to learn how to read these things too. Again, you guys should take an appraisal class down at the convention. It's very, very helpful. This is a 2-car garage with a 1-car driveway. So because you could fit 2 cars in the garage, he gave a $10,000 value. Okay, this one has a 1-car garage, 2-car driveway, 1-car garage, 1-car driveway. So a 2-car is worth $10,000 more than a 1-car. Again, one of our comps had a 1-car, so this is good for me to know. So 1-car versus 2-car garage is worth $10,000. And I could go on and on, right? We can really get into the weeds into this, but the important thing is going off of these things. So now you're kind of seeing why I picked those things, right? So when I go to adjust my comps, and I'm sorry it's taking a while, but again, I just think it's worth going through the weeds with this. We're going to get into it a little bit more. These homes were a little further, but again, they're just the ones that are in the comps as far as price point go. The ones that are a little closer, this one hasn't closed yet. It's active. So we're going to start with the ones that closed. The important thing is looking at the closed properties. So okay, sales, financing, nothing, single family, it's about the same. Total rooms, we don't really care about like room count. They don't really do adjustments for that. They do adjustments for bedrooms. There is no difference in bedrooms, so there's 0. This one has a full bath, 3 full baths. This one has 2, but it has 2 half baths. So this is going to be a 0 net, right? Because you might give yourself $5,000 more for having an extra bath, but then you might subtract $5,000 because it doesn't have those 2 half baths. So it's a 0 net. That's why there's $0 here. 3 full bath. Again, I can give myself that extra $5,000, right? But then I'm gonna take it away here. So let's just not convolute everything and leave it alone, right? Living square footage, big difference. Now this is where we start getting into the numbers. So from 2,800 minus 1835 is a difference of, I divided it, sorry. 2,800 minus 1835. Guys, please keep yourself muted.
Right.
$965. It's $965 difference. So we're going to multiply that by $35, which was the square foot average. That gives $33,000 in value. Okay. Big difference. So here's what we're finding now, right? So 33,775. 33,775. Now, what do you say to your seller when you're presenting this? You're not throwing these numbers out of nowhere. Say, look, I do a lot of business in Roselle Park, and I looked through some of my more recent appraisals, and I found that the price per square foot in Roselle Park is about $35. Now, look, I only looked at one. Let me look at another one. I just sold 470 Henry Street in Roselle Park as well, and 453 as well. Let me look at the appraisal, and let's just look at the numbers here. Let's see if it's the same. 1,564 minus 1,443 was 121 square feet, and he took away $4,800. So 4,800 divided by 121. It's about $39 a square foot. Okay, so I can go through it, and it's probably going to be the same. Now look, this house was 1564, and this house was 1476, and he took away $0. So at what point did he decide that there's no difference, right? That's also another thing to consider. Ours was 1564, and that one was 1476. If it's within 100 square feet, I'm guessing there's no price adjustment. That's pretty much what he's thinking in his head. Now here, there's a big difference. 1790 minus 1564 is 226. $9,000 minus, or sorry, divided by 226 was about $39 a square foot. So I can say that in Roselle Park, it goes from anywhere between $35 to $40 a square foot, right? And I can pull up another appraisal and another appraisal and another appraisal, and you'll see the gist of it, right? Look, this one had 3 beds, 1.5 baths. This one had 3 beds, 2 full baths. He did not give adjustment. He did not take away value for that extra. Why? Because they don't have that half bath, but they do have the full bath. So he's saying that having 1.1 is the equivalent of having 2 baths. So that's something that's important for you to know when you're looking at these comps. So this one doesn't help too much because he didn't do so much appraisals. Some appraisers are very lazy. They are, like, you'll see that some of them don't get into the weeds as much. Yeah, look, this one had a deck and a porch, and this one didn't have it, so he gave $3,000 in value. It's a lot of stuff.
On the first one, because on the first one, it was a $5,000.
Yeah, sometimes they do that. And there's a range, right? There's a range of things they could give. This one has a fireplace, none. This one, our subject did have a fireplace. The comparable didn't have a fireplace, so he gave $4,000 in value for us. So again, you could get into it a lot. I don't really like to get into the features. I mostly deal with the square footage. So this one here, we already know. Now the next one is 2,800 minus 1,684. I guarantee you, agents are not showing up for sale by owner with adjustments like this, right? So if somebody's telling them, look, your house is overpriced, everybody's probably coming in and saying your house is overpriced. But how many of them are coming in with a workbook and showing them what it should be at, right? And showing them numbers and facts. That's what it's going to make you stand out. So I'm going to do, it's a difference of 1,100 square feet. Let's give it $35 a square foot on the conservative side. It's $39,000 in value. And if you need to show, remember, this information can be manipulated for different things. If you're trying to prove the value to an appraiser, you might go with the 40,000 square foot, right? And then because you're trying to prove a value. A lot of people don't know, but appraisals have wiggle room. And that's the important thing when you're dealing with certain lenders. If they work with certain appraisers that don't want to give you that wiggle room, you're going to have harder time. $34,020. All right. So these are the adjustments that we're making, right? Adjustments. I just did all the square footage adjustments. On the full bath, let's do bedroom adjustments. They're all 4 bedrooms. On the full baths, I'm doing 0. But on this one, I'm probably giving myself $5,000 more because I have a full bathroom that one doesn't have. On this one, I also have $5,000 that one doesn't have. Okay. Now, if it's a negative, you would do minus and then 2,000. Right? That's how you do adjustments in the negative. In this case, ours is actually superior to all of the comps. So we're just adding in the pluses, or not the pluses, just the value. Lot size is not really a big factor. That's another thing that people are really surprised when they start looking at appraisals. I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, but if you look at a lot size, this lot size is 5,300 square feet, and this lot size is 4,300 square feet. So it's 1,000 square foot smaller, and he took $0 away. So interior living square footage is a huge factor. Exterior lot size is not a factor, like, at all. Look at the lot size on this one, 6,650, and look at this one, 7,405, $0 in adjustment. Okay, as long as the house is not like a huge difference, like you're talking about, 20,000 square feet versus 5,000 square feet, then you'll have an adjustment, and even then, it's not a lot. You would be surprised how little they give for actual backyard space. It's more of a desirability factor. Look at this one. This lot size ours was 6,650, and that one, you guys see the one I'm pointing at? 2,750. Tiny.
Oh, but he did run in there.
Yeah, $2,500. So our lot was 4,000 square foot bigger, and he only gave us $2,500 in value.
And probably they said something to him.
Right.
He probably had it.
Right. So, but that's the thing. You have to realize that the backyard size, the lot size is not that big. It's a huge factor for marketability, right? A buyer's not going to want to buy your house if they want a big backyard, but a value, it doesn't give it. Same way that taxes don't impact your assessment or like your value and appraisal, but they hugely impact your marketability. Okay. These are important things that you guys really look at your appraisals. Take when you get them, really analyze them. So I'm not going to give any adjustments whatsoever on lot size. And if he asks, oh, well, my backyard is so much bigger, I can pull up one of my appraisals and say, look, this one was double the size and it gave 2,500. So there's no, again, it's not you, it's the process. That's what you're explaining. All of them had garages. You're built. Okay. Here's the part where you're rarely going to be able to find adjustments. Why? Because people don't normally compare new construction to old construction. It's going to be very, very hard. If you look at the actual age, this house is 80 years old. This one's 102 and 101. You know, it's 20 years. There's no difference. Which is why I was telling you, using a new construction, you might end up getting a little closer number. 82, 81, 70. Most appraisers don't do new construction versus old construction because there's a big difference when you start looking at the numbers. Actual age, 79, 101. Nothing. 84, 85. So it's going to be hard for me to find value. Sometimes I will do it just to kind of justify my price. And I'll show you what I mean by that at the end. At the end, when I give a recommendation of list price, I can plug in numbers to make it fit what I want it to. So I'm not doing a price adjustment for age of the home, but I can if I need to defend my value. I'll show what I mean. Central Air, remember, was worth $10,000 more. 575 East Grant, and this is why I wrote things down instead of flipping through, did have central air, but 575 East Grant had radiant heat, no central air. So I don't want to get into these too much, but if you see some of them like central air, if it says none, then you can give, this is baseboard water heater as opposed to heat, radiant heat, and that gave me about $5,000 in value. Central air gives about 10,000. Hot air gives about 5,000 because you still have hot air. I mean, heating. It's just not the same, right? Roofing, frame, all the other stuff is about the same. So if you look at the bottom, when you look at gross adjustments, it automatically does it based off of the numbers that I plugged in. So mine is worth about 9% more. Why? Because the square footage was just such a big difference on this one, right? So that's why at the bottom it'll show it. Now I can add my notes and include notes in my report. So when I look at this property, and I like to do this so I can show them. When I looked at 575 East Grant, I'm going to put here, 575 East Grant, home was smaller, but yada, yada, yada. Whatever you do, you include that in your report. That way you have like context. And I'm just going to show you what it looks like at the end. Right? And then here, you could actually give more weight to a comp. For example, I'm weighing them all about the same. But if one of these houses was really close to that one, you can give it more weight. So let's say this is a very similar comp. I can say, you know what? I'm going to weight this house more. Or like, for example, the one on East Lincoln. Like that's a very similar home. When I find out how much the house sold for, I'm going to give this more weight. Why? Because it's very similar and it's in this current market. So I might give this one like 27%, right? And then I might take away, like if this house sold longer or like this house is much smaller, I might take that 10% from here, right? So you can see, you can choose which ones to give more weight and the price changes based on it. So all calculation, right? I'm not going to belabor the point more than I have already. You guys get the idea. We built this comp out, and then go to the next one. The more adjustments you make, the more price point you're going to change. Let's say I give $2,500 in value for this extra bedroom. Now $2,500 in value because it has 1/2 less living area. These are important. Let's make sure we do all the square footage adjustments because that's where the main difference in price is going to come. 1240. That's times 30. So that's 46,800. Now, mind you, every time I make an adjustment, look at this. My adjustment based on this is 664, and the weighing comes out to 622. So right now we're at like 622. Well, look what happens when I add the square footage difference, 46,800. 46,800. It jumped from 622 to 634, right? And the weighing jumps up a lot. If that house was this size, it would be worth that. So this is why it's important to add in all the square footage numbers, because if you know that that's going to be the biggest price point, and look, this one is actually bigger, right? So we have to make sure we adjust for it as well. 333 square feet times 35 is 11,655. So here we do minus 11,655. Okay, and then 500 bucks, 500 square feet times 35. It's going to be 17,500. Okay. So again, lot size we're not really messing with. Garage is all there. Year built we're not going to really mess with too much. But if you wanted to give yourself more value, if you wanted to try to prove a value, you could say, oh, well, this house is newer, so you can give a number. The problem is when you don't have an appraiser giving you that number, you're not really qualified to establish what that number is. We have central air. This one only has window AC units. We know that that's worth about $10,000. So that's important, right? Okay, we're going to scroll down to the bottom. Basement, we're not going to mess with so much. I think I'm getting my number, right? So I'm coming into 635, whereas he listed it for 664. So I think I'm going to be suggesting that we list the property for 629,900 based off of everything that I'm saying. All right. And now you guys are seeing how I'm coming up with it. Now let's just say we're done. We update the adjustments. Again, you can go into it every single one of them. What you can also do here is you have a price range and you at the end create a report. Once you create this report, you're going to see how detailed this thing is. The valuation workbook is approximately 74 pages. It's a long one. The seller's report is 81 pages. Okay. I typically like to do a seller's report, but I like to remove a lot of pages. So here you can select what pages you want. So if you don't know like what it looks like, you just click here and it shows you. So the summary page is this. I like that. Let's keep that. The property's values includes this. The listing price is this. Like there's a lot of things on here, right? I'm going to remove the estimated value change. I'm going to remove the comp analysis result. Well, actually, I can keep that. But the comp analysis range I can remove. The home facts is important because that's what you've plugged in, right? And then the homeowner facts, we just leave that there. The extended like livability score is not a big deal, so I like to remove that. The refined value shows you kind of where those adjustments are, right? And you could go in there. There's like a sliding scale where you can say this one is better, this one is worse. You don't get into that too much. Property photos, you're probably not going to have too many. So you can remove that. Historical photos, we don't really need. That's old photos of the home. Property history, we don't. Yeah, I guess some of this stuff is like the more charts you have, it just makes your presentation look very complete. But it doesn't necessarily. It's not really valuable. It's not really too valuable for you. So it's more about like, look, this is all the detail, right? Now here, where you have your comps, you definitely want to have your comps. But I don't necessarily need to have the selected market activity because that's stuff that the system uses automatically. So I always deselect that. Market activity, active listings. I don't like to have all the actives, but I do like to have the pendings because it shows you what's about to close. So I remove that and then I remove the sold because not all of them are going to be general. Like my comps are the ones that I picked. I don't need to have all of the recent sold because a lot of them are not going to apply. Market activity, distressed property, that doesn't matter. Like this is not a distressed property, so I don't have that. Expired listings, I don't really mess with that as well. And then the recommended pricing strategy, I do leave this here because I can actually fill this number in. Refined value calculation, we don't mess with too much, but my comp analysis calculation, I do want to be there. Seller's proceed page is really important because they'll usually ask that. And then the last page is usually about the data. I usually don't include it. So, and then I wanted to include my notes and the seller's proceeds. So I kind of walk through the whole thing and I deselect a lot of this stuff. And then after I'm done with it, I just hit run report. So it's going to take me a minute to generate. Any questions so far while this thing creates it? No? Okay. Let's look at reports. It's finalizing. If you have questions, now's the best time. Nope. All right. So once this finalizes, it usually has like a little doorbell sound, and I'll kind of step through it with you guys and show you. We'll close this out. It's a lot of info, so sometimes it takes a minute. Still finalizing. All right. That I'm gonna find out, and we can start closing some of these things out. And you're gonna see how when you print this packet, if you bring this CMA along with your presentation that we went over in the other training, it's gonna be a pretty thick packet. Like you're gonna have a lot of information to give, and even if the client's not gonna read through it all, the fact that you're providing it and it's all these data points, it's gonna make you look very, very professional. All right. All right, it's taking a while, so I might just open up one of my other seller reports. So I have one. Okay, this one right here. We're gonna open up the seller's report. Oh, that's the bell that tells you that it's done. So let's download it. I was gonna look at that one, but I'm gonna look at this one instead. So look how cool it is. It actually gives you a full report, showing you. Let me open it on my PDF editor because there's sometimes I can I edit some things. I'll show you what I mean by that. All right. So in the report, you'll see a lot of information. I gotta update my profile. But you'll see the first thing here shows kind of refined value. This is why I don't like to show this, because if I'm suggesting a list price of 630 and it says my refined value is 694, it's not a good look, right? So what I usually open it up in my editor and I just kind of delete certain things. Or when you're creating the report, just don't include the refined value, right? Current estimated value, it tells you RVM. That's okay. Like again, you tell him that the comps are there, but the market's a little different. Then I show him the changes that I made, and he might say, "Oh, you have a 5-bedroom," or "No, we have 5 bedrooms. You only wrote in 4." Well, yes, but the property tax record shows 4, so that's why I'm showing that. And honestly, when I look at the comparables, it doesn't change it too much. It shows you property history, which tells you how the market's been going up. It shows you sales history. Again, a lot of data, not everything you need. You don't need all this information, but the fact is you have a 24-page packet that you're showing up with. And at the end of the day, what happens is people trust data. So if you give a suggested list price and they don't read any of this, but they're looking at all these charts and numbers, they're like, all right, I guess this number came out of somewhere. It's not like I'm showing up and say, hey, let me list your house for 630. No, here, I want to list your house for 630. Here's why. And you give them the whole pack. Whether they read it or not, that's on them. The fact that you have it is the important thing. Okay. This also shows you market activity. The darker it is, the higher the price point. And that shows you kind of like, okay, like we're right in the buffer of price points that are expensive, but down here it gets a little cheaper. These are again reports, data, maps. That's why I love NARRPR. It just has so much information. It shows you list price versus sales price. Any house that sells within 31 to 60 days has been going on average 7.3% above the list price. What does that tell you? Homes that sell quicker sell for more. Homes that sell for more in more than 120 days go for less. So this is why it's important to list at the right price. If you overprice it and you take longer to sell, at the end of the day, on average, you're going to sell for less. Okay, this is kind of what that is. You don't have to go through it, but you should know, because if they open up one of these pages and they're like, what does this mean? You have to be able to say what it means, right? Price adjustments when they happen. Again, just a lot of charts, a lot of data. We can get into it. It's important for you to understand it. The important thing here is listing inventory, showing you there's 39 active single-family homes, median price per square footage. Like there's a lot of things here, right? It's a lot of data. And you're using all this data to extrapolate what you believe is going to be the price. Here's the comps, and it gives you kind of like an appraiser. Remember, the appraisal had the subject and it had all the comps. This has the same exact thing. So this shows you all the properties, and it shows you how you compare, and then it gives you the information of the home. And then we have the adjustments, and then the notes come all the way at the bottom as well. So then it shows you page by page. Okay, I used this, East Clay Avenue. This was active. Here's the value. This one is pending for 450. It just lets you show them that you know what's going on in the market, page by page. Look, this one's under contract. It was listed for 499. It's just showing them what's going on. This one is 608. It's a big property, 560. Again, I didn't have enough time to really review everything with you guys because we've already been here 2 hours. But this is the point. You go through all of these things before you show it. Now, here's the recommended pricing strategy. Very, very important thing. When you do this and you actually adjust everything, it gives a price per square foot, lowest, medium, stuff like that. We didn't adjust it. So I would recommend that we remove this page. Why? Because it's kind of asking them to sign something with a price point that's not it. I'll show you the one that I like to sign. So I go in here, I delete that page. Okay, seller's proceeds, here's where you could write in their numbers. So this is important because if you're telling them, look, I could get you X amount for the house, a lot of times they want to know, well, what am I going to end up with? So let's say that on the low end, you sell for 600. And on the high end, let's say I can get you 650, right? And your number is going to be somewhere in between that. You ask them how much their mortgage balance is, you plug that in, and then you put in the commissions at 5% or 6% or whatever you negotiate. You put in all these different things. The tax stamp is the real estate transfer tax. So the way to go to that is you go to NJRTF calculator. I have it bookmarked here, and let's say that I sell your home at 600,000. That you're going to pay 5185. So that's where you put the tax stamp, 5185. So this is a nice little workbook. You kind of step through it, and then you do all the net cash to seller, and they can see how much money they're walking away with. The final thing that I'll say is when you present this on this page, I typically would leave it blank until I get there. But I just usually put like suggested, and I tell them I leave this blank until I walk through the property because I did it off of what I saw. Suggested list price. I just write that in there, and then with a pen, I fill it out when I'm there. Based on what I saw and the adjustments that I made, I think I could sell your house for, let's list it for 629, right? And then you would write it in, and when you're there, and then that's where I kind of present it to them. I don't like to have something in writing on the paper before I go into the house, because I can get in there and the house could smell like cat piss and smoke, and like I thought it was 630, but then I'm like, damn, I actually, maybe it's 600, right? So I don't write that in until the end. All right, guys, that was a lot of information. Practice makes perfect. That's kind of like the point here. Go in here and start messing with this report. Take your listings now and build out a report. If you have an appraisal coming up, this is a great thing to hand to an appraiser, because you're not just giving them a comp sheet. You're actually giving them numbers, right? Sometimes they don't like it, but it is important. I'm going to save this. I'm going to share it with you guys. And hopefully, if you have any questions, you guys can really dive into this and get more out of it. All right. Thank you all for joining the training today. I'm going to stop the share. Later.